Welcome to Step Zero. I'm your host, Caitlin Henry. Today, I'm sitting down with someone whose work has inspired countless women, as well as myself, to rethink their relationship with alcohol and reconnect to their power. Karolina Rzadkowolska. Did I get that right, Karolina?
That was so good. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you're here. Okay, very proud of myself. You can see in the show notes how to spell her last name, and we'll get to how to contact her later. But for now, Karolina is the author of Euphoric, Ditch Alcohol and Gain a Happier, More Confident You. She's also the host of Euphoric Podcast and founder of Euphoric AF Coaching. She helps women gain clarity, purpose, and passion by transforming their mindset around drinking and themselves. So again, welcome to the show today. I am so pumped to have you. And I just want to say, I've been following you for years. We just figured out before this started recording that she's a little bit ahead of me in sobriety. And that's what I needed at the time, was someone who was only 6 months to a year ahead of me. It made it very tangible and very I could grasp what you were saying. And so now she has over 7 years of sobriety. Is that what you
Yeah,
said?
it's gonna be 8 in February.
8 in February, and I'll be 7 in January. I like to say, not God willing, but also my willingness. Like, it's my willingness to do the work and to step in. And talking to people like you helps keep me sober. And so, if you haven't heard of Carolina, or whether you have, I know we're going to come up with some amazing content today of how women can trust themselves again, how to listen to your intuition, and really how to reinvent your life from the inside out. So, to start, just can you take us back to when you first started questioning alcohol's role in your life? And then how did you get sober?
Yeah, I love this. Well, thank you so much for doing this show because I don't know if you remember, but these kind of resources weren't as prolific when we were questioning
Oh, I
alcoholism
remember.
years ago. So I was in this loop where, I started drinking a lot in college and grad school and stuff. Total partier. Like, I didn't have a very responsible relationship with alcohol at all. But as I grew up, I tried to make it more responsible, more sophisticated. So I'm going through my mid to late 20s and, I'm starting my career, I'm getting married, buying a house, settling down, trying to run 5Ks, get healthier, lose some weight. And so I start pushing and relegating drinking to this thing that I only did in the weekend, right? No more clubs on a Tuesday. It's like this adult thing. And so what would happen is Monday through Thursday, I tried to live a very healthy lifestyle. I would drink green juices, I'd go to yoga classes, but then every weekend, without fail, alcohol was always involved. And it was your typical stuff. It was like sushi night, it was like a wedding, it was dinner at my parents' house, or it was Netflix at home with some, wine. Doesn't matter what was going on, alcohol was always included. Now, I had been trying to drink less. I had some episodes where, maybe I went to a party and I had too much to drink and stuff. So, my mind was always in this mindset of, just drink less, just drink less, just moderate, and I had so many rules and restrictions around it. But no matter what I did, every Monday morning, for years and years and years, I woke up like clockwork feeling so exhausted, so ashamed, and with so much dread about the upcoming week. And it was almost like every Monday I had this little existential crisis of just what are you doing? Why do you keep repeating this? And this little voice that also was whispering, Carolina, you're made for more. And I think back then, because there wasn't so much going on in the sober curious space, it was really new. I was like, well, if I quit drinking, do I have to label myself an alcoholic? Do I have to go to AA meetings? That's not what I want to do. So I just kept kind of doing it, even though I knew it wasn't making me happy at the end of the day because of, I don't know, these preconceived assumptions that I had. And finally, I heard about Dry January. Actually, it started in the UK as a health campaign. Now it's huge. 44% of Americans do it every year. But that's unlocked something for me. Oh, I could just take a break from alcohol. I don't have to go explain it to everybody, and I don't have to go tell everyone I have a problem or something. And so that was the first time I really allowed myself to explore alcohol-free living. And, while the first Friday and Saturday night were kind of awkward, I started to find the benefits really fast. I started to love the sleep. I loved how much more energy I had in the morning. I loved that no matter what, I woke up on the right side of the bed and I was proud of myself. And I felt a lot of self-love that the past version of me set me up to feel this way.
So
And I
can I
really,
ask really
yeah.
quick, when you were taking a break, because that's exactly what I did. I was like, I'm just going to take a break and I'm going to see how I feel. But what did you do exactly? What was it? Because a lot of our listeners, they can barely take a day off, 2 days off, or they say in the morning, this was me, I want to take a break from alcohol, but then by the afternoon, evening, I was drinking again. Do you have anything that you did in those first breaks or break that you could suggest?
Yeah, absolutely. And before this, I would try to take like a weekend off every month, and so like I really struggled with that. So I totally understand what it's like to like tell yourself you're not going to drink that day and then you end up doing it. But I
Exactly.
think like I had already gone through that cycle so many times that I was so ready to not have the pressure to drink for a whole month. Like I kind of reframed it that way for myself, and I told a lot of people. So I told like
Mm.
some of my friends, I told my husband, and I'm like a stubborn Leo. So I think that level of external accountability was like, oh no, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. You know what I
I
mean?
just got goosebumps because it's
Yeah.
so true. It's outing yourself. So I love that you shared that you actually did say it to a few other people. And it doesn't have to be, oh, I'm posting it to social media. It doesn't have to be that big of a commitment, but it is. It's telling the husband, just telling the friends or maybe some family members.
Yeah, and I think that like back then too, I didn't have all the other tools yet of like how to change my subconscious desires for alcohol, so I can explain that in a moment. But, at first it was just kind of this like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And I also knew how temporary it was. I kept just saying like, Carolina, you can drink on February 1st. It's not that big of a deal. Like calm down. You're just going for a month. You know what I mean? To kind
That is
of
exactly what I did too, which I think a lot of people don't talk about. If you give yourself an end date, it makes the day to day much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think like within that container, because of the things I had done to set that up, I started to actually enjoy it and actually found that, peace with it. And I just noticed how much my mood was elevating. I would like really reconnect with nature in different ways, like even going on a hike and just looking at the clouds and the trees. Like all of a sudden I was like just there and present and really, really enjoying myself. And I had like these moments where I laughed harder than I'd ever laughed since I was in high school, and just this like pure joy that was emanating. I literally was euphoric that January. And so
I
February
love
does
that.
come around, and I tell myself, right, that I can drink. And I still have, like, I really enjoyed dry January, but I still have this really predominant belief system that a normal adult drinks. So therefore, if I want to be normal, I must drink. Plus, I wanted to reward
Yes.
myself for
Just
dry
say that
January.
again. Say that again.
I had this like preconceived notion that a
Yes,
normal
yes.
adult must drink. So if I wanted to be normal, I had to drink.
Oh, this is my listener. So thank you for saying that. Thank you for making that statement out loud.
Absolutely. And so I did drink a few times that February, and it was a total letdown. I like kind of was building in my mind all January of like, oh, I can't wait to have my first drink and stuff. And then I would what got there and I was like, this kind of sucks. Like my sleep was horrible. I woke up so groggy and foggy the next day. And I even noticed really acutely in the moment. So I noticed that like after that 20-minute buzz wears off, I got really cranky and impatient and even starting little fights with my husband. And I was like, wait a minute. I thought I was drinking because it was fun. This isn't actually fun. I was having more fun with the clouds and the trees in dry January.
And you
So for
needed to
me,
give yourself the break to see that that's how you felt. And no one can tell you how you feel drinking. And so, what I love is that you gave yourself a long enough break to see that you actually liked how you felt without it versus how you felt with it because you had been stuck in that cycle for so long.
exactly. And so February 24th, I decided to take another break at that point. And I get to like maybe 3 or 4 months or so under this break. And I am just like, killing it. Like, I feel better than I've ever felt in life. Like, there's so much science that goes into it, how your neurochemistry rebalances, your body and your hormones are rebalancing. Like, I've never felt better till that point. I look like fresher, younger, just everything is like beaming. And I notice how much my confidence and my courage is going up as well. Confidence of like, oh my gosh, I didn't drink for like 3 months. Like, who the hell does this? Like, I'm superwoman, right? And then also
Yes.
the courage of just wearing this new alcohol free identity. But I still think it's a break. And I actually go to a trip to Japan. And I had at that point booked the trip when I was a drinker. And I had booked a drinking and eating tour as like the first activity of when we arrived. And so I get to Japan and basically I have to make a decision. Like I'm on this tour. There's literally like a cup of sake and a beer placed in front of me that's already prepaid for. And I just have a moment and I think to myself, I have not experienced more wonder, more awe, more sense of self-love, more confidence and courage than I have over the last 3 or 4 months. And I know that the second I have that beer, all of those feelings are going to go away. And for what? a beer that I've had thousands of times in my life before. I know what it tastes like. I know what it feels like. I know the end result. I want to keep chasing this other route. And so I got home from that trip to Japan. I didn't drink. And so
And
something
by
really
the
cool
way,
was
that's called playing the tape forward. If you're new to sobriety and you're listening to this, what Karolina did was she played the tape forward. She said, how am I going to feel if I take this drink? How might I feel if I don't take this drink? And just taking that moment to pause changed the trajectory of literally your life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got home and I basically kind of something solidified it. I didn't know that I was like going alcohol free forever yet, but I knew I wanted to really see what I was capable of without alcohol. And I was doing a lot of healing. I was changing a lot of my subconscious beliefs and desires for alcohol. I started completely losing my desire to drink, and something woke up in me. And I started to realize that this whole weekend thing I was doing, like, can't wait till the weekend to drink, having that being like the most fulfilling part of my week, I was unfulfilled in my career and in my life. And so instead of like just being brunted with that harsh reality, I started using that courage and that confidence that I got from, going alcohol free in order to build a different life. And I just got this feeling that I had to share this with other people. I had to, at that point, I'd lost my desire to drink completely. I had to share this methodology because I struggled for years before, being in that kind of like just wanting to drink less and trying to moderate and stuff like that. And so I decided to not only launch a business, become certified as a coach. I started writing on the first draft of my book. I launched a podcast. I ran a half marathon that year. And my entire identity shifted so fast from this like mediocre, like middle lane drinker who's doing just fine in life to being extraordinary. And since then, that's like almost like over 7 years ago, my business has gone on to be wildly successful. It's helped thousands of people change their relationship with alcohol. I've helped so many people step into that purpose too that I was missing. Because to me, it's not just about the alcohol. It's like, what is it masking? What is that the band-aid for that your soul is yearning for? And I've helped so many people step into their purpose as leaders, coaches, business owners, podcast hosts, whatever their dream is, to just travel the world. Like, it doesn't have to look like one specific way. And that's how I've really evolved in the alcohol-free space, is that I don't just help people question alcohol, but I kind of help with the what's next. And so now I do certify women as coaches as well. And then I help alcohol-free business owners grow their businesses so that they can reach more people, which is really exciting. So it's just been this entire incredible journey. And, nowadays, like, I was able to leave my day job. I was able to retire my husband. So now we travel together. And now, like, a normal day in my life is to be on a stage on one weekend and then go host a retreat in South Africa the next weekend. And like, I live the life that I was so dreaming for back when I was drinking. I yearned for freedom. I yearned for impact. And I didn't realize back then that alcohol freedom was the ticket to those dreams and to those desires. Now, it doesn't mean my life is perfect all the time. Obviously, we still go through challenges and being human, but I never go to bed without feeling fulfilled. I could not say that back as a drinker. Every single day I have fulfillment. Alcohol is meaningless to me, and you couldn't ever even pay me to have a drink or anything like that. And I'm so proud of the version that I've become through this journey.
Yes, and you can hear it, you can see it, like you really embody this authentic alcohol-free freedom. Like literally, you're so free. And that's what draws so many women to you. And so I want to ask, when you were still like in the mode of taking breaks and trying to figure it out, how did you navigate not drinking socially? What were you doing around friends or family?
Yeah, so because I had been sober curious, and that can mean something different to different people, but to me, it's the point in time when you realize you don't love everything about alcohol. You do have love-hate relationship. You're trying to drink less. Maybe you're already taking breaks, right? You're interested in having less alcohol in your life. That to me is that definition of sober curious. So I was sober curious without knowing it for years before. And so I went through these dilemmas where I told myself I'm not going to drink at a certain occasion, and I felt weird and I felt awkward and all this kind of stuff. So I went through all of that, but something clicked completely differently the year I actually went alcohol free. And what happened differently is that I think through societal conditioning, through different TV shows and movies I'd watched, through my own experiences of upraising, I had equated, and this is going to sound lame, but I had equated drinking with being cool.
Oh,
Right?
it doesn't sound lame. Everybody does this.
Everybody thinks that, right? So to me, it was the status symbol that when you
Yeah.
drink, you are cool. When you know your fine wines, you're cool. When you know the breweries, you're cool. Like whatever it was a status symbol for me. And so I flipped it on its head and I started getting really inspired by other people in society who don't drink. Like Tony Robbins doesn't drink, Brene Brown doesn't drink. And I started seeing that as the status symbol. So I remember, again, I struggled before at social events, but now walking into this new identity, I remember walking into parties and birthday events and like 4th of July with an alcohol free beer and being like, look at this cool drink I have. You guys are drinking that old crappy stuff. Like, did you guys not hear the news? Like, I was the trendsetter and I was so proud to almost like turn heads and just like have conversations about it because, I'm a Leo. I'm also a 3 on the Enneagram. And I knew that if I wanted to go alcohol free, I needed to be a leader about it instead of like kowtowing and like hiding. And I know people to this day who will like put a glass of champagne in their hands and like pretend drink even though they don't drink just to not make a scene. And I'm like, no, we have to go the total opposite. Like we need to stand proud because the thing is that if I saw me at a party today, but like 8 years ago, I would have been like, whoa, like she's allowed to do that. She's allowed to come here and have a great time and not drink. And it would have rocked my world because it would have shooken so many of these preconceived beliefs and this conditioning that I had. And so that's kind of how I owned it and I changed it. And it was so cool to see the reaction of people because they were curious instead or asking questions or even admitting that they want to drink less and stuff like that. And that was so cool because for years I thought I was the only one. For years, I remember going to this game night and like the game night lasted around 3 hours and it was always a Wednesday night and everyone had about like 3 drinks while we were there the whole night, right? And maybe it was like 3 IPAs. They were big like beer like people. And every Thursday after that Wednesday, like, whatever game night, I felt like crap. Like those IPAs were so strong. I was like, holy shit. And I just literally remember thinking to myself, I guess they don't feel like that. I guess they must be fine. I must be the only one who has this effect with alcohol. And so, I started to like completely dismantle that too and be like, everybody hates how they feel after they drink. Everybody. And I'm actually going to own it and I'm going to claim this new way and I'm going to be really freaking proud of it. And I'm going to be the role model here. Now, again, this wasn't like an overnight switch, but it was really important to arrive here so that it was like a new status symbol I was stepping into instead of feeling embarrassed about it.
Yes, and just allowing women to know that it's safe to show up and it's safe to say, no, I'm just not drinking tonight. And I always say, if someone questions that, they actually are questioning their own alcohol use. People that don't question your alcohol use don't have a problem with drinking. I go to a friend's party. She has no issue with drinking. She's such a normie. And I'm like, no, I'm good. And she'll have a sparkling water for me. And she doesn't ask me any questions. There's just nothing wrong with it. Now, people that don't know, obviously now it's different because I'm very public about my sobriety, but it was something that I didn't post for a long time. I would post quotes, not photos. And I was so scared to tell the people around me that I wasn't drinking. So Karolina's story is so amazing and it does take time. It's not, like she said, overnight. But at the same time, the more I started to share it and the more I started to say, I'm just taking a break. I'm not drinking tonight. Then it made me brave enough to say, well, I'm going to take a longer break. And some people would be like, well, is that forever? Like my bachelorette party's coming up. What, are you not going to drink there? And I just would say, I don't know. I'm not sure. There was no reason to acknowledge the forever piece. And I'd never seen that before finding accounts like yours, finding authors like This Naked Mind, Annie Grace, all the things you're saying of looking up to these celebrities, looking up to these people in this quit lit space and saying, oh, it's okay to just say like, this makes me feel like shit. I need to take a break.
Yeah. And it's okay to recognize that if we're being honest, everyone feels that way.
Yes.
And it's only the bravest people and the most intuitive people who are actually going to do something about it. And then it inspires other people to do it too. So it's like you are, just by the fact of listening to this episode, listening to this show, you are already one of the most forward thinking people in your circle, right? Everyone else is just a late adopter. They'll get with it one day, but you are the true rebel and you are the true cool one, right? You discovered the new thing, the new like trend, only this one isn't a fad. It's here to stay.
Exactly. It's here to stay and it's growing. And you have so many great stats, but I do know that this space is growing and I'm super excited for it because, like we talked about before, it's come a long way in just 6 years. And now with ChatGPT and how much social's around, I'm excited to see what progresses next. But this next part, I want to jump into your book, which I have a hard copy right here. So it's Euphoric. You talk about how ditching alcohol and gaining a happy, more confident you, which again, you can hear in Carolina today. And so in the book, you talk about moving from this willpower to alignment. And so, what does that shift actually look like for someone who might feel like they're still in the gray area?
Yeah, good question. So we have to recognize that we have literally been socialized into drinking. And it is not something you just pick up the first time you have a drink when you're like 18, 21, 13, whatever, those time of eras. You've been socialized your whole life. You watched people drink when you were 4 years old. You watched things on TV. I literally have a photo of me. I wish it was right next to me, but it's a photo of me at kindergarten doing a collage, like where you're supposed to like cut out things from a magazine. And in front of me is a magazine. On one side, there's a wine advertisement. On the other side, there's a vodka advertisement. So to think that we have not been conditioned to believe that drinking is normal, drinking is a code of belonging for adults. Once you're an adult, you're going to be part of this special club. This is how you prove that you are accepted. This is how you prove that you're independent. Like all of the messages, this is how you're glamorous. We have been fed for years. And so what happens is that then you have your own experiences with alcohol as a young, person. And for me, I was so introverted and so shy when I started drinking that it did turn me into that extrovert I wanted to be. So immediately I take this belief that alcohol makes me an extrovert and this is a great thing. So we have all these little micro and macro experiences with alcohol that keep feeding into this narrative that we need it and it's taking care of our human needs and it's the secret sauce to, being an adult and all these kinds of things. So I really truly believe that none of us is born with that. That if we lived on an alien planet and if we didn't invent alcohol on this alien planet, we wouldn't have that same cultural conditioning around alcohol. And we would just be like, okay, that's a poison. Why would I drink that? That makes no sense, right? And so we have to recognize that if you really want to not only lose your desire to drink, but also be in alignment with what your true desires are, you have to pluck out that old conditioning. And I truly believe that, you can read my book, for example, for this process. You could, join different programs for it as well. It's something that I include in my Become Euphoric program, which is offered through a club membership that I have now. But basically, it is a very ruthless process that you need to go through to just identify every single human need that you're using alcohol for, every belief system you have about alcohol, and all of the different ways that you might not think that you're enough on your own, which is also a limiting belief. And then we need to go about changing all these things. So it's be a process, right? You don't do it all overnight, but like you start with one area. So the first area, for example, was that I thought I needed alcohol to be confident, right? Because I'm introverted, shy, I need to have the drink to be extroverted. And so I started to kind of unpack that and be like, well, is that really true? Is that true always in every situation? And I started to realize, well, what about those times I embarrassed myself? How is that confidence? What about those times when you get the wine stains on your lips and on your teeth? That is not cute. That is not confident. What about the times when I said something out of character that was out of alignment with what I would have really said? Or that one time I made a fake best friend being all vulnerable when I'm drinking and then waking up the next night being, whose number is this? You know what I mean? That is not confidence. So I started to dismantle the idea that alcohol made me confident and started realizing it's actually making me insecure. But then I really thought about it. Okay, I go to a networking event and my brain immediately goes, you need a drink. And what do you think my subconscious is getting told in that story right now? Carolina, you're not good enough. You have nothing interesting to say. Nobody really wants to talk to you. But here, have this drink and then you'll be better. Right? That's what I was constantly telling my subconscious mind every time I thought I needed a drink to be confident. So I'm like, whoa, right? Confidence isn't something you outsource. Like the only way you're going to be confident is intrinsically. And oftentimes you have to do something over and over and over again to get confident. You first start with courage and then after many, many reps, you become confident. And I realized, well, I've never really practiced like socializing without alcohol. Like I've been, ever since I was 17, alcohol was always in the picture when I socialized. So maybe I need to like work this muscle out. And so I start working this muscle out and really starting believing that confidence is found within. And now these things don't faze me anymore. And I do have that sense of confidence. And I know it's inside of me, not going to be something that's poured in a drink, right? So this whole belief system is not only completely toppled, it's reversed. And I found the truer, more aligned answer for myself. And now there's probably like 20 to 50 categories you might have to do this through. But once you really ruthlessly do this, you will lose the subconscious desire to drink. You won't even have cravings anymore because alcohol doesn't meet any of your needs and you see it for what it really is. And that I think is really important because otherwise, like, you don't want to just be like white knuckling it or like, just telling yourself, I can't drink for whatever reason. That's not like alignment that you want. And I think what really happens is that once that slate is wiped clean, then your true desires come out. It's like, I couldn't notice it when I was in the drinking cycle, but once I was like further removed, I was using alcohol as a way to deal with my boredom and unfulfillment in my life and my career. And the only way I was going to change that was to feel those feelings and actually start making changes about it. And that's why I launched my own business and started doing what really lights me up and gives me a sense of purpose and passion. So I don't feel bored. Maybe on a random Sunday, I could have like a little boredom of like, okay, it's raining. What am I supposed to do? But in that big existential way, I do not feel boredom in my life because I have a sense of purpose and a sense of passion. And if I didn't go alcohol free, I wouldn't have arrived there. And so that's my example. And for a lot of women, that's a similar example because we do feel so lacking in purpose and just that sense of unfulfillment that we have. But other times it could be something else. Like maybe you're in the wrong relationship or have the wrong boss. And that's like until you go alcohol free and stop numbing that, you're not going to really get those messages and get the strength to actually make the shifts that you're supposed to make to change the situation. Maybe you're not meant to live in Nebraska. Maybe you want to live in Hawaii and you actually get the confidence to go do that and feel in alignment there. And so there's like it's like alcohol is blocking the messages that your intuition is trying to give you about what's going to feel not only aligned for you, but also make you feel more happy, more authentic, more on purpose, more living in your destiny instead of just like going through the motions. But alcohol really, really blocks it. So I think that's really important to recognize. And it's so interesting because I've talked to so many different experts over the years, and like I've talked to psychic mediums, I've talked to like shamans, spiritual people, and they all have the same like complete opinion about alcohol, that it blocks your psychic ability, it blocks your intuition. Shamans won't touch it. Like it's just something that completely separates ourselves from ourselves. It doesn't help you build a relationship with yourself. It like blocks you from doing that. And then it feeds into so much self-criticism and shame and so much of the negative self-talk. We already have negative self-talk, just the fact that we're humans, but alcohol like 10 times is that. You know what I mean, right? So it's just so important, I think, to give yourself the space and like, maybe you take just 6 months off and just say, hey, I'm going on a 6-month experience to truly get to know myself and truly see what I'm capable of without alcohol. You can go back to drinking whenever you want. It's not going away, right? But like, I think that's the most beautiful kind of commitment you could make to yourself, to just see what you really want out of life. Because trust me, it's not a drink at the end of the day.
Yes. And everything you said, it blocks you off from your intuition. All the great spiritual healers or celebrities that we admire, they don't drink. And there's this fine line between fear and excitement. When you talk about courage, this is what came up for me, was I can be in fear about this, or I can choose in that moment to pause, reframe, and actually get excited. What could I feel like without alcohol? What does this look like? Oh my gosh, I want to dive into my purpose. Does that mean I take like a one-off Reiki class? You don't have to jump from here to 100 steps ahead. You just have to take a break long enough to say, oh, maybe I should try that yoga class at the gym I've never tried. Or it's just that next step of, if I were drinking and I had a hangover, I would never move forward. But let me see what having a little bit of courage, but calling it excitement feels like.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. And it starts, like you said, those little steps. Like you first have to recognize, what do you want to do that's fun, that replaces what you used to do when you were drinking. And like, honestly, it's kind of sad, but I think most adults don't know what's fun for them anymore. I think we used to know as children, and I think we've got so detached from that. And we did feel bored as children, and then we went and did something. We created something. You and me are of the generation where we got our rollerblades out and we climbed trees and we went out and created fun. And then we become these adults who just become passive zombies and drink a drink that just makes like fireworks go off in your brain, but you're not really doing anything. And so that was like where that, like, even finding my purpose. I know that sounds like so, meta and just like word salad. But at the end of the day, I started just discovering, what did I find fun? And that was just experimenting, like, where do I find joy? Organic joy, right? Organic joy. And I always think of, you've heard those experiments that they do with rats, and, they are able, for example, to put electrical nodes on a rat's brain where it will electrify the pleasure center in their brain. And so a rat can do it to itself, right? So let's imagine that there's a lever in the cage and the rat is sitting there and pressing the lever over and over again to get the electrical stimulation. Is that fun? That's dystopian, right? That's like a horrible, mean experiment. Like, fun for the rat is going through the maze and finding the cheese and having challenge and all this kind of stuff. And that's kind of how I think of alcohol and any other kind of like substance is like we can't outsource being creators in our lives to this thing that like just hits off our dopamine response, right? You know what else hits off your dopamine response in a much more natural and beautiful way is a sense of challenge, is a sense of doing something new, is a sense of putting yourself out there. So I have a chapter in my book. It's called like week 7, and it's like an 8-week guide that you can use. And it's all about creating your own fun and really experimenting. And for me, I remember like I went to writers workshops, I went to Zumba classes, I went to like the museum and botanical gardens. I just did stuff that was so abnormal for me and new and just trying a huge variety of things. And that's kind of what initially started showing me that I love to write and I love to teach and I do want to have a business and stuff like that is some of those initial things that I did just to answer the question of what is fun for me outside of alcohol. You know, and I think that there's just like, look at this world that we live in, like planet Earth right now. You have like beautiful snowy mountaintops, you have beautiful like white paradise beaches. There's so much culture to learn from. There's so much foods to try. There's 195 countries around the world. What if we evolved on Mars and it was just this like red, dirty planet that was like red, right? Like there would not be very much to do. But here on Earth, like we're so lucky. There's 9999999 million things to do that don't revolve around alcohol. And somehow we've been duped into thinking alcohol is the only thing that's fun. And then we miss the point of everything else, which I think is really sad. Like modern drinking culture makes us those rats in the cage at the end of the day, right? And like that's the rebellion today is finding your own fun, your own organic joy and doing what really lights you up, and that will usually be the answer to what your actual purpose and your passion is in this lifetime. And I think with like we need more consciousness on this planet. We need more people to wake up. And we also are having a revolution from older ways too. And I think the alcohol-free revolution is part of a bigger revolution. And it's like kind of the doorway into that higher consciousness. So I'm just super excited to see it. And, you know, like just sharing back of my old mentality, I think is really helpful to see that, of course, we think alcohol is fun because that's what we were taught all our lives. And that's the only thing we did for fun. But there's so much more expansion that can come out of choosing to see different ways.
Oh, and we're stuck in our comfort zones. This is a huge part of why we drank was it kept us safe, small, and comfortable. And I say it today because it's not just alcohol, it's social media is doing it to us. You can be addicted to food or sex, like all those things are keeping you small and comfortable if you keep following the same pattern and the same loop like Karolina's talking about. And when you can step outside that comfort and you can challenge that belief, like you said, and you can do so, things like Karolina's book, things like working with a coach, it is eye-opening to find, like you said, a purpose that is greater than yourself where you can say, oh my gosh, if I can focus on this every day, I'm like the rat. I don't even want that stimulator. I don't want the thing that's doing that to me. I want to go through the maze. I want to find the cheese. Like, I love how you said it that way. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have described your alcohol-free journey as a spiritual awakening. What opened you up spiritually when you stopped drinking?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I don't know if I have to go into it so much about how I was raised or anything like that, but suffice it to say, by the time I'm a drinker, I don't really connect with anything outside of me, right? And, you know, I always wanted to be a writer. I loved reading when I was a kid, and I would write a lot when I was a kid, and I would do these little poems and these little short stories and stuff. And it was really sad because by the time I go to college and my drinking really picks up, I stop writing. Like I stopped even journaling, which I think says a lot about my ability to be like open and authentic and honest with myself. But this dream to write never really went away. And as I got older, I'm getting into my later 20s at this point, I start doing this like New Year's resolution stuff. I'm like, okay, this is the year I'm going to write a novel, and I'm going to write every day, every week for 1 hour a week, right? And I would do it the first week of January, and then I would totally give up. And honestly, it was just so much easier to open a bottle of wine than write the next great American novel. And so what you said to that point of like staying small, staying hidden, staying in your comfort zone, it just got me over and over again. To the point where I literally had a conversation at Christmas right before I took my big break from alcohol with my sister-in-law. And she asked me if you could do one thing in your lifetime, what would you do? And I like literally said it with the most despair ever. And I was like, if I could just write a book, if I could just write one book. You know, when I was a kid, I thought I'd write multiple books, and now you could hear the despair in my voice. I don't think this is going to happen for me. I think I'm going to give up on this. And so I go alcohol free, or I start taking the break, right? And all of a sudden, my journaling is like crazy. Like I just have so much to express and so much to say. And then one day I'm sitting on a beach in Hawaii, and I get this epiphany that I'm looking at the sunset, and all these other people are like trying to get a drink at the bar. And I'm like, you guys are missing it. There's this masterpiece in the sky that the universe has like drawn for us. And I just feel so amazing. And this word comes to me, and it's like euphoric. You are euphoric. You are meant to write a book and launch a business about this. And it was like this divine download that I got. And about a week later from that trip, I'm sitting in front of my computer in a cubicle, right? This is my old 9 to 5 job. And every single chapter of this book is downloaded to me in a single instant. And I start like writing it down and everything like that. And obviously it evolves into what became the actual book, Euphoric. And now I had basically writer's block for like a whole decade. I tried to write so hard, and it never anything came through. And all of a sudden, just like bam, I'm gifted back with the writing and all the ideas and all the creativity in the world. And I start writing every single morning, and I start doing a first draft of my book. And, you know, and a few years later, it all morphs into the book that I had to write. And so I know you asked me about spirituality, but ever since I decided to remove alcohol, I get these huge divine downloads of what I'm meant to do or what my next step is. And it's totally outside of me. Like it just hits me. And I have a few moments where, you know, I'm just looking at the stars, or I'm looking up at the moon or something like that. And this next big message comes to me. And so, you know, all of a sudden at this point, I start recognizing I am being guided. Like there is something out there that's bigger than me. And I start going on a spiritual healing journey as well to really reconnect with that and reconnect with my own sense of purpose and why I'm here on this planet and just like what I believe and stuff like that. And, you know, now I have my late grandmother and my ancestors, and I just connect to things outside of me all the time, whether you call it the universe or like, you know, loved ones that I had that departed and stuff like that. And so it's just been remarkable. And like, I love to dive deep into spirituality. I will read all of the books about it. I love the different practices and stuff like that. And I'm not like someone who comes across as very woo woo. Like, I'm not talking about like angel numbers and astrology in my content, but there is like a curiosity that I have, a really deep desire to continue strengthening that, because there's just, I think when you get the evidence of getting these messages that are outside of you, that you cannot negate them away. You can't say that nothing out there exists in that way. And so it's been, you know, fundamental on my journey. And the messages also told me to, you know, become the role model that I wish I had when I started, and become this thought leader in this area and share this message out with the world. And I was just watching this beautiful documentary they filmed about Jane Goodall, where she's actually speaking to an interviewer like right before she dies, but they're not going to air it until after she passes. So now it's aired, it's on Netflix. And she was just talking about her life and saying, like, I know I was put on this planet for this purpose. Like, I know I was, after this many years of wisdom. And she's there telling everyone you have a purpose and all of your lives matter and we all can make a difference. And I just really, really believe in that now in such a strong way. And I know that all of our lives, like, we have a bigger purpose. And I think sometimes we fall asleep at the wheel. That's just the normal way of being a human. There's too much stress. There's too much things going on. There's too much, like, you know, childhood experiences that morph into self-limiting beliefs. It's easy to stay small and hide and just be asleep at the wheel. And I'm so glad that I woke up. And for me, it was through that alcohol-free journey. Other people wake up in different ways, but I kind of think that going alcohol-free is the fastest way to do it. So I think it's like the cheat code. But it's just been such a beautiful experience. And I know I'm being guided by my ancestors and something, you know, the universe above me. And I love to have that connection today. And I was that skeptical version of myself who got zero messages. Like, I was begging for stuff to write about. What could I write a novel about? Just blank, 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 blank until I went alcohol free. And then it was like, ah, and I get these ideas and these divine downloads now all of the time. It's just uncanny.
Oh, I love hearing that, because I had such a similar experience. And I hope that the listener who might not be able to step away from the drink yet hears this, because it is about, again, going back to taking that break for long enough to get the messages downloaded. And the yearning you had inside of you prior to drinking, I hear like how badly you wanted this purpose. And now that you've stepped into it, what you're really taking action and doing. And so, how do you personally balance surrender versus taking action? This trusting the universe, but then also doing the work.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I do a lot of work. I think there is a lot of work involved. And I think that you have to recognize that you're always getting that guidance and you're getting these ideas, and that, there's so many things I manifested. Like, I got a six-figure book deal with less than 5,000 followers. Like, there's so many things that happen in my story that shouldn't have been, that have been purely this beautiful divine positioning and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, once I got the message or the download that something was meant for me, I went for it. And I think that's what I didn't do as a drinker, is I would like, hem and haw and dibble dabble and start and stop. And I think that's something that I really cultivated as the alcohol-free version of myself, is I'm disciplined now. If I say I'm going to go for something, I'm going to do it. And so that might take a time, that might like be a longer journey than I thought, but I think taking the action is very important towards what you want. But then trusting that you're going to get the guides that you need, trusting that you're going to get the mentorship, trusting that you're going to get the roadmap, trusting that you don't need to figure out the how. That literally it's just one step that's going to be shown for you to take, and you need to trust that that's the next step you take. And then after you take that first step, then the second step will be revealed to you, then the third step. So I think that's where the surrender comes in, is now knowing that you need to get, not you need, but you can get started without knowing the whole roadmap. Nobody knows. The tyranny of how is what keeps us so stuck. And trusting and surrendering to the fact that the universe, or whatever your belief system is going to reveal what the next step is and what's going to feel right and aligned as you keep progressing. But if we stay stuck and we don't take that first action step or the third one, or we kept hemming and hawing there, that's where like sometimes we can almost do that fake surrendering, where we're actually just hiding and staying small, and we're just scared of the next step instead of that. And so, take bold action towards your dreams. Like, I think, about it, like, I don't know, what happens when we die. I don't think anyone can literally say that with full conviction unless you've had like an NDE or something. And so maybe reincarnation exists, maybe it doesn't. Like, I kind of lean on the side that it does. But as far as I know, I'm only ever going to live this life in this body, in this personality, in this time now. And there's going to be so many things that I'm going to regret doing when I'm 90 years old if I hem and haw and don't take that bold action. And usually the bold action that the universe is begetting of us is what's growing us into the version of ourselves that we meant to become. So like, for example, I love helping people achieve bold, beautiful, wild goals, but it's not about the ticking of the boxes. It's not about, oh, now you're worthy that you've achieved this goal, or now this is, whatever, now you'll be happy once that. It's not that at all. It's who you become as you strive and evolve to be the kind of person that could reach that goal. And the same thing is true for going alcohol free. It's not about the alcohol, right? It has nothing to do with the alcohol at the end of the day. It's who you will become in your journey to becoming happy and fulfilled alcohol free. You will become the version of yourself that doesn't need to people please anymore. You'll become the version of yourself that has boundaries. You'll become the version of yourself that doesn't settle. You'll become the version of yourself who finds their purpose. Like, that's what the universe is trying to get you to do, to go on this journey to question alcohol. It's not about the alcohol at the end of the day. Like, that's the trust and the surrender, I think, where we're being divinely guided into it. And then we actually have to take the action steps of what that is asking of us. So that's kind of the way I look at it. A lot of hard work went into growing the business I have today. A lot of hard work went into writing my book. My book took 4 years to write. That's from the beginning of that inception, when I had that like divine download, to the day that it was on a bookshelf. And I got traditionally published, so it is a longer process. But imagine if throughout that process I was like, oh, this is taking too long, like I'm going to surrender, not do this anymore, right? No, like there's steps, and there's so many things that we can be doing to take forward an action on our goals. And I think that's like one of the most beautiful mindsets you can have, is that there's just always a solution, because you will feel helpless if you arrive at any point of your life and just feel like there's not a solution. Maybe you have have trouble parenting your kids right now. Maybe you're struggling with alcohol. Maybe your job sucks right now, like whatever it is. But when you feel that there's no solution, that's when we get into despair and helplessness. When you know that there is a solution, you just haven't found it yet. You just haven't walked that road yet. That's where hope can be. And also, when you're doing something that you try a lot of different solutions and nothing seems to work, like that can be maddening if you think that anything I try is just not going to work. Like, you have to believe that there's more to do that you just haven't done yet before. And there's this really funny saying by Tony Robbins. He's talking to someone who's like, Tony, I've tried everything and nothing works. And he's like, okay, well, what have you tried? And he's like, well, I tried this, this, and that. And he's like, okay, you tried three things? So you're telling me like you've tried everything, but you've only tried three things, right? And so that could even be someone on their alcohol-free journey. Like, I try to take the break, Caitlin, I tried to read the book. I tried to do this. And it's like, no, no, no. Like, there is always a solution. Edison failed 700 times before he found the ticket to electricity. So I just love that mindset, because it's not just about succeeding for succeeding's sake. It's about having all of the hope and just feeling that divine guidance that all of this is meant for you for a reason, and that you're growing and evolving for a reason as well. So I think that's kind of how I look at it. Surrender to the how, but do what that's showing you. Do that first step, do the second step, do what it takes, kind of thing. And like, keep knowing that no one succeeds on the first try. And I think just knowing that that's that actual path, and that you're not doing it wrong, you are on the right path. And when I like look up to people who are ahead of me, I love to hear their stories of failure, because it just makes me know that I'm not doing something wrong. This is the path, you know?
Yes, failure is the path where you can be a fork in the road, and the failure actually guides you in the right direction. It's using that pain for purpose. And I always say surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. There's actually this embrace your power moment instead of, I'm not giving up my power. And I always say the steps are out of order, and I do a 12-step program, but it's this one thing where I'm not powerless over alcohol, and maybe my life doesn't look unmanageable. But what I know for sure is I can take back my power in any moment. I can say, I'm not going to go to the 5 locations within a half-mile radius of my house where I could pick up a drink. I have the power to sit here, to listen to you, to read your book, to do your programs. Even that, right? There's 3 things right there. Have you tried those, listener? So it's one of those things where at any moment you can take back your power. And that's what I hear from, your just beautifully spoken words.
Thank you.
Yeah. And really, today's episode, I want to talk about how it's just about becoming the woman you were always meant to be, right? So you've built this beautiful coaching business and community. Are there any fears that came up around visibility as you started sharing your story more publicly?
Of course. I mean, we're talking about one of the most taboo topics ever, alcohol, right? I built a $1 million business about not drinking, right? Like, it's a funny one. So of course that came up, and every time I evolve, like, I don't just talk about going alcohol free. I talk a lot about purpose. I talk a lot about entrepreneurship in my content. I talk a lot about helping other people. So every time I evolve as well, like, obviously there's the fear of like, oh, people won't agree with me or this or that, or like not understand it. But like, I think we all came with a specific message and a specific philosophy that we're meant to share and meant to help other people with. And that is our legacy on this planet. So for example, I have this like kind of content piece I use a lot on my social media that's like, successful people don't drink. Now, if you were to be super analytical about it, I'm sure you could find a lot of examples of successful people who do drink, but by the way, they would be more successful if they didn't drink anyway. And I have a huge running list of successful people who don't drink, and I hang out with a lot of 7 and 8 figure entrepreneurs, and most people don't drink in those circles. So what I'm trying to do by saying that isn't by, stating a fact that everything in the world must go in accordance to this fact, but the fact of the like, I'm showing people who are already sober curious and already going on their alcohol-free journey that they're validated, that they're actually walking the path of the greats, and they are on the path of becoming a huge legacy themselves. So there's just things like that that have, tripped me up. I remember when I first launched my certification program in 2023, I was like, oh my gosh, who am I to certify people? But I got all the credentials. I became a coach trainer. I took 15 different certifications myself, and I built what I believe is one of the best certifications in this space that not only certifies you as an alcohol-free coach, but also as a success coach, a mindset coach, an NLP practitioner, and a hypnosis practitioner. I included a retreat in a business mastermind thinking, well, people know what this is. Will they want to do something that's this in depth? And like, that really scared me. And we have sold out every class ever since then. And it's been the wildest success. And now what's so cool, Caitlin, is that I am not supposed to be the guru that's here to help 7 billion people, right? I don't think any one of us are. But when there's more leaders, and some people listening to this show might be like, yes, 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 this is all like the way I live my life. And now I want to help other people too. I truly believe that you're meant to help people that me or Caitlin would never reach. And that when you step into your purpose and really come into this place of service, that you are meant to help people and that you went through your journey for a specific reason and that your story can only be related to by a specific person out there, then there's more meaning out of it. Then there's more like fulfillment too of why I went through these challenges in the first place. And I think that's why we go through it. We're supposed to help the version of us that's behind us. That's why you podcast. That's why I do what I do. And I think that's a really good message too to the people who are listening that are like, yes, I did go through this. I have so much wisdom I could share with the past version of myself. Now let's actually make that into something meaningful that I can actually do and share that with people. And so I just find that's a natural thing. A lot of people want to help people once they go alcohol free. And so, if you want to get certified or you want to start a business around it, or, you have a health journey you want to incorporate, like we help burnout coaches, wellness coaches, like all types of people to be able to grow in different ways. But I just think that like we're living in that era now where you don't have to go through anything alone anymore. And there's so much support and guidance out there. And there is like your role model and your hero out there that's going to help you because you see yourself in them. And I think that's really beautiful part of being a role model is that it's not an ego trip. It's not for you. People see themselves in your journey and they aspire to what you've built and they look up to it because we need examples. We need role models like that. That's why they say representation matters so much because when a child is growing up and they don't see that there's ever been a female president, they say to themselves, well, then that's just not possible, right? And so once you start seeing a version of yourself in the thing that you want to do, you're like, well, why couldn't I do it, right? And I think that's a really beautiful thing to recognize too, that if you admire authors, it's because you're meant to write a book. If you admire people who speak on stages, it's because you're meant to speak on stage. If you admire people who podcast, you probably have a podcast inside of you. You know what I mean? So whatever it is that you admire, if you admire the world traveler who's walking around barefoot in Bali, it's meant for you. So really take those as cues as well as you go on your alcohol-free journey of like who you look up to, what's inspiring to you. This is like the answer to fulfillment for you is listening to your desires above all else, above what your parents expected of you, what society expects of you, what your resume or your boss thinks of you. Like go do the life that only you came to this planet to live and listen to those heart desires.
Absolutely. And this is the biggest part of my why as well, is being of service to others. I love how you said that you are the only one who can help the people that you can help, because sometimes I think we look at each other on social media, a bigger, better business, and we're like, well, who am I to do that? But I love how you framed it, that you are specific to you. You said earlier, a blueprint is only yours, that you can help someone with your specific story. So if you're looking at me or you're looking at Karolina and you're like, well, I can't do what they do. Guess what? You shouldn't do it the way that we do it. You should do it the way that feels true to your soul. Incorporate all the things that you want and what is calling to you. But unless we remove alcohol, we can't hear those callings.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. And I had another person say it this way that, we all have these soul contracts and that sometimes we have a soul contract to help another person. And that is like written in the stars, basically. And only you are meant to help that person, not these other people who are bigger or more famous than you or whatnot. And that's really special to be like, get in the ring. Like you have something to offer. You don't have to be born being Tony Robbins to like get into the arena, right? And that's like what Theodore Roosevelt's speech was all about, is that like, it's not the critic who counts. It's the people who are valiantly trying to build something new and do something valiant and, create a different culture in a different world and innovate and, do big new things. And at the end of the day, that's the biggest difference between who I am as an alcohol-free woman and who I was as a drinker, is I didn't want to get in the arena. I wanted to stay in the stands. I wanted to be small. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to hide in my comfort zone. Not all the time, right? There's a part of me that wanted it all, but that was the default safety, like you said earlier. And I learned to recognize that that's not safety at all. That's a life of defeat. That's a life of regrets. That's a life of timidness, And my grandmother and my ancestors did not survive wars and famines and depressions, so I could live a timid life today. I'm going to live the bravest, most valiant life today. I'm going to go after what I want, and I'm going to elegantly let go of anything that stands in my way. like looking at alcohol, right?
I love that you say elegantly. Sometimes mine looks like a hot mess of tears, and I'm like, what am I doing this all for? I'm not so elegant, but I love that. Like, you're just embracing it, and you're like, I've been through enough trials and tribulations to know that this too shall pass. And my mission in life is to help others, which I want to talk about this ripple effect. You talk about the ripple effect of one woman choosing herself. And what have you witnessed in clients when they finally decide to step into their worth? And I will say here, I got to have the sober New Yorker on my podcast. For those of you that don't know, Melissa McGovern. So you can go back and listen to that one. But Karolina trained her and she did her certification. So tell us a little bit more about, again, just what have you witnessed with your clients when they decide to
Oh my
step into
gosh.
their worth?
I just saw Melissa today. She's in my thought leader mastermind too because she's getting on stages and writing a
Oh,
book. So
she's
it's so amazing,
phenomenal.
right? When
Phenomenal.
I met her though, she was working in elder care and wasn't really sure what she wanted and was like, newly alcohol free, but still just like really unsure of what that looked like. And she went through the certification and she worked with 20 one-on-one clients in her first year. I'm so freaking proud of her. She's growing such a big movement. She has her own style. She has her own message. Like she is so brave and just beautifully putting it out there. It's hard for me to be like the before and after is just so wild to me. And she's just one example. I've worked with too many clients where, they're in a relationship with alcohol and everything is just the status quo life and they remove the alcohol and then all of a sudden they go after these big huge dreams. And I've worked with clients who have written the books and gotten best-selling book deals. I've worked with clients who have moved to different countries because they always wanted to live in France, for example. I've worked with clients who always wanted to become a coach and make a living doing this, and then I show them the route in the certification. I've worked with clients who always wanted to speak on stage and now they're speaking on stage, so it's just amazing to see. And even sometimes the less obvious results of success, like just being a present parent and really being happy in your body and, that kind of confidence that comes with that. So it's just so fulfilling the work that we do. It's so amazing. I'm obsessed with it, obviously, because it's just the biggest transformation. But then also, too, my niche and my world, I help those people who are alcohol free, newly alcohol free, really direct that into a focus, into that big dream that they have. And that's what really lights me up. Because at the end of the day, it's really just not about the alcohol. That's the vehicle you get to have to get to this evolution and get to this transformation. And if anyone here is like still struggling with like taking a break or going alcohol free or going back and forth with alcohol, if you could 100% believe that the universe is tapping you on the shoulder to let go of alcohol because you have such a massive purpose on this planet, how differently would you think about it? How differently would you go about it? To just know, like, I am the chosen one. I have been literally chosen because I have such a big purpose to let this go. This isn't like a damnation. This isn't become I'm weak or I drank too much. Everybody drinks too much. Come on, right? You are being asked a question, though, for a reason, and you don't know what that is yet. And it takes a lot of belief and a lot of faith to even lean into that idea. But you have to, like you said earlier, surrender into that and trust into that and really believe that all of the cards are being set up for you like that. And I look at Melissa, in her story, I don't know if she shared so beautifully, she probably did, but her story really started when her best friend died from alcohol and she really fell into depression after that. And then she also pulled herself out of it and got healthier and went alcohol free. And so I really think now today, the 20 people that Melissa has worked with one-on-one since she got certified, the people who she has affected on her social media, the people who are affected anytime she gets on stage because she's now getting paid to be on stage, all of their lives are forever touched and forever changed because Melissa decided to stand up. And maybe somewhere out there, her friend was part of that purpose to have his life be cut prematurely so that she could go and help so many people. And I know that's a weird way of looking at it, but she has to believe that all of these things are unfolding for her. And I'm just so grateful that she didn't waste the purpose and just keep on drowning in the depression, because then the world wouldn't be changed in all the people's lives that she was meant to change. And so I hope that's like a great example. You can go back to that episode, as Caitlin mentioned. She's amazing. And really, like, that is my ideal client. She's the future thought leader who's here to change the world. She just might not know it yet. That's all. And we're going to help her. We're going to help her ditch alcohol, find her purpose, become a business owner, become an entrepreneur, become a thought leader, write books. Like, it's all in us. 83% of Americans want to write a book. So I'm not talking about these pipe dreams that nobody has. A lot of people desire this, but they're just like, it's a hard one to admit to yourself that that's what you really want, because then what happens if you don't really go for it? Well, guess what? You're 44% more likely to achieve a goal if you write it down, and you're 82% more likely to achieve it if you tell someone else. So it's actually in the bravery of admitting what you really want that you're going to be so much more likely to achieve it and go after it.
Pause this episode right now, call a friend or a family member and tell them your dreams and goals, because then that one person is holding you accountable. And that's what I love about coaching. You're holding Melissa accountable to just show up for herself, for her own dream, for her own aspirations. And I can tell you right now, you're lighting a fire under my own ass, because I'm like, okay, maybe I ditched the alcohol, but I am not doing enough in my business. Maybe I need to go to your retreat. Maybe I need to go do the next thing. So we'll talk about that later. But unfortunately, our episode is coming to a close. And at the end, I like to ask just a couple questions. They're rapid fire. You can just answer in one sentence if you want to. But what is your go-to mocktail?
I'm in my mineral water phase, not like a La Croix, but like those like European fancy ones that you can get in Whole Foods that have like a salinity and stuff like that. I love those. I'm like really simple.
I know, me too. Because after a while, you're like, I don't even want the sugar from a mocktail. So squeeze a lime or a lemon. All right. What is one morning ritual or a micro ritual you do during the day that grounds you?
Journaling. I have to express myself. Joan Didion has this quote of, I don't know what I think until I write it down.
Oh, beautiful. I was just at a conference this weekend and they said a blank page is endless possibilities. And it's so true. All right. What is current song that instantly shifts your mood?
Oh, okay. It's called We Come Running. I can't remember the band right now, but it's like my certification anthem. Like every time we start a new class, we're actually starting a new one next Friday. Every time we start a new class, I just get such a deep feeling of like, oh my gosh, this is the next generation of leaders. They're going to change so many people's lives. Like I don't take these things lightly, like the meaning that I have and that creates in this world and the ripple effects. Like I really allow myself to feel into that. And that song just hits me at the core and just makes me know not only what I'm doing is important, but also the way that it is creating the ripple effect for other people. And like it just gets me in all the feels.
Oh, I love that. And I will say, if you're newly sober, thinking about stopping drinking, put on some music, shake your body, find the song that lights you up. That has been incredibly helpful for me, even at 6.5 years of sobriety. So, all right, our last question for today. There's a trend on social media called, if I could have coffee with my younger self, what would I tell them? So if you could go back and have coffee with younger Karolina, what would you tell her?
So simple. Stop drinking and start a business.
I love you. Most people I get to start crying. Here's Karolina. She's like, nope. Stop drinking, start a business. All right. Where can listeners connect with you, your book, your coaching programs?
Amazing. Euphoric AF will have all of my programs, my certification if you're interested. If you're a thought leader and you want to become, a best-selling author, we just do so much to help people who are already not drinking spread the message as far as possible. And then I'm on Instagram at euphoric.af. I'd love to, if you have a question for me, if you want to ask me about something, anything, send me a DM. I would love to have a chat. And then Euphoric, just type in that word into Amazon. You'll find my book there. You can go to euphoricbook.com. It's available in most countries around the world. I think the only place we don't serve is Africa and Asia. So you will find it anywhere. Get the book. It is considered, it's been told by other people to me that it's just one of the most empowering books in this space, and it is all about the person you're becoming, so much less than the past. So it's not really a memoir from me about my past. It's more so about the version of you becoming and really unearthing your deeper dreams and going after them in this alcohol-free lifestyle. So it can be really the thing that clicks for a lot of people. So I'd love for you to get a copy of that and check that out, and then let me know what you think afterwards.
And it's such a beautiful book. All right, if you guys are listening today and you're wondering if you have to hit rock bottom to change, Karolina and I are living proof that you can just stop digging right now. Just take that first step. Karolina, thank you for bringing your wisdom and light today to Step Zero. It was such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.